Hi, I'm Sandra Parker from Just a Tonic. 6 years ago, I was struggling with alcohol. I was a binge drinker. I tried Willpower, all the usual stuff for decades. Once I discovered how to not want to drink and feel amazing, I decided to set up a company to share it with other people. I'm excited to share with you how I help my clients go from drinking daily, drinking for decades, binge drinking, or some combination, to enjoying their life more, fulfilling their potential, and never feeling deprived. Thanks. What I'm going to talk about today is why all the things that we think are going to work to help us get control over alcohol don't actually work.
So Sandra, willpower. Why do you think that doesn't work?
So it's a good question. I think anyone that's tried to get control over alcohol has tried for decades or years or however long to get control using willpower. But if you really look at it, it's actually quite simple. When we apply willpower, what that actually means is we are making ourselves do something, or in this case, not do something that we actually want to do. So if you want to drink alcohol and you're relying on willpower, what you're actually doing is you're trying to make yourself not drink when you really want to drink. Now, you can't sustain that for a long time. Like, even if you feel that you're an incredibly disciplined person, and a lot of my clients are, they're very high achieving, but however hardworking, disciplined you are, you can't willpower is not an endless source, right? So willpower will run out at some point, and scientists have proven that we have a limited amount of willpower. So, for example, if you have a day when you're exhausted at work, your energy is depleted, your willpower is going to be running low. So you wouldn't choose a long-term method of getting control over alcohol, trying to rely on something that ultimately runs out. And secondly, every time you're relying on willpower, you're fighting a desire to drink. So that means you're signing up to be endlessly deprived and feeling like you're missing out. So not only does it not work, it also feels pretty miserable.
So for those who are not in control, would you suggest using an app?
It's a good question, right? A lot of people that I speak to have tried an app. I remember trying apps myself, right? They sound great. And for some people, they do work, but they tend to be people that don't really have much of a problem and they're just looking for a bit of extra motivation. The problem for most people that are struggling with alcohol is they will use an app for a couple of days, but then as soon as they have a day where they don't feel great and they end up drinking more than they planned, they stop using the app. The problem with the app is it only focuses on the behaviour. So it only focuses on, did you drink, did you not drink? And it doesn't actually do anything to say, well, why did I want to have a drink in the first place? So it's what I call a surface level tactic, because it's looking at the behaviour of drinking without actually tackling the root cause. So it might work for some very light drinkers, but in my experience, for the vast majority of people, that won't work.
And how about challenges such as Dry January? How does that play out?
That's a great question. I remember doing Dry January myself, and most of my clients have. And again, there are some people that Dry January, Sober October, one of my clients called another one Miserable March, right? Whatever you want to call it. There are occasions and certain people that works for, right? But again, if somebody's quite health conscious and they maybe occasionally have more alcohol than they want, they might do quite well on that kind of challenge. But because that challenge only ever looks at whether you drank or whether you didn't drink, it doesn't do anything to address the reasons why you're drinking. So for most people that are struggling with alcohol, that doesn't work. And it actually has a detrimental effect. I can remember when I was doing Dry January, what it done for me is reinforce the fact that life was miserable without alcohol. The whole kind of the whole approach to Dry January for me and for a lot of my clients is you've had a great time over Christmas and December and now you deserve to be punished, right? It's a bit like you've run out of money, or you need to be more disciplined. So we think, right, why January? We do January because most people think, well, January is a bit of a miserable month, right? If you're in the UK, the weather's not great and nobody's got much money, so it's like, right, okay, I'll just stay in and not drink. And what that actually does is reinforces the belief that not drinking is miserable. And most people, even if they stick it out until the bitter end, they plan things in February to celebrate, right? So I can remember when I was doing it and people would say, all right, so you're not drinking in January, well, let's meet up in February, right? And the idea was we would celebrate in February. And how did we celebrate? By drinking more. So it ends up making people have an even stronger belief that not drinking is miserable. And as soon as they either give in, or as soon as they get to the end of the month, they just end up drinking more. So actually has the opposite impact as intended.
Fascinating. And are there any other ways that people try to gain control of their alcohol consumption, which you seem to find that don't work?
I think that one of the biggest problems that we have is we've all been conditioned to believe that alcohol is this amazing magic elixir, right? It's this like social indulgence, and it's an adult pleasure. No event is complete without alcohol, right? I like my running club has a bar, right? My gym hands out glasses of wine on a Friday afternoon. My hairdresser does cocktails of the day, right? My old gym used to do a spin class, and they had a gin promotion afterwards. It was called Spin and Gin, right? So I think it's helpful for us. Actually, my running socks, I remember, I didn't realise this, but I looked at my running socks, and at the foot of the socks it says, no pain, no champagne, right? So I feel like it's helpful for us to know that we have been massively conditioned to believe that we need alcohol and that it's really important, and also that there's nothing wrong with it. And when I work with clients, one of the first things we do is we talk about this isn't this harmless indulgence, and if you're struggling with it, it's not your fault. So when I was growing up, the sort of guidance on alcohol was there's very few people that've got something wrong with them and they're an alcoholic, right? Now those people are to be like respected. We feel sorry for them and we shouldn't offer them any alcohol. But for everybody else, just exercise self-control and you'll be absolutely fine. Now that's very convenient for the alcohol companies, and it gives us this belief that if we're drinking too much, it's our fault. You know, that we just have to keep exercising more self-control. I can remember the adverts were drink responsibly. But, you know, we don't tell people to take cocaine responsibly. You know, like we ignore the fact that alcohol's a drug. So I think the reason why a lot of the things we're doing don't work is, one, because we've been heavily conditioned to believe we need to have it. That's endorsed by all the messaging around us, and that's fairly constant. And so we don't actually see it as an addictive drug. Once we start seeing it as an addictive drug, we can then realise that most people are going to need some sort of expert help if they've been struggling on their own. But because we make it shameful, because we think it's our fault, then it stops us from seeing it for what it is and actually taking the action to get help.